I select this geometry. I'll hide this geometry for a while so that I can concentrate on other things for some time. So I just choose this ground plane. To get more character to this, I would like to assign uh, the displacement map to this. So I'll take a noise. I'll hide this and then render it. Okay, so I'm just getting that rough to the surface. So I select the ground plane and then choose the Arnold, and in subdivision choose catalog subdivision so that I get some very fast quick response of the displacement. And then what I do is I select the shader and the noise what I have used here, I reduce the amplitude and choose Berlin noise and repeat it 10 by 10 times. So just get that nice roughness. And then I use the alpha gain and alpha offset. So I'll use a value here which is 0.1 in alpha gain, and then in alpha offset I'll use negative and half of that number. So I get that nice iterations on the ground, some organic texture of the surface with that. I select the light here and then I choose the elevation to 30 and start playing with the azimuth, which gives me the direction and more depth to the scene. I mean, you get more shadows, you feel what's happening there. I'm changing the azimuth to see the direction of the sun. Maybe I can choose a very nice rim light there. If you are expecting more dramatic scene, it should be good enough. Maybe something like that. So you get a very beautiful evening sort of thing. This looks very dramatic. Big sun. So I just bring back the elevation and start playing with the. Yeah, this looks pretty convincing at this level. So I would choose different shaders to. So we got the branches here. I'll assign a shader to the branches. I'll keep very simple procedural shaders. I'll keep the specularity to 0 and take a 2D texture noise, and yeah, looks pretty okay, but the UVs are something which we need to work on, but I don't really go deep into that area. So I'll just click insert and then change this to some wood color. Okay, that should be okay. So I'll select all the leaves. So we have 3 different leaves. It should generally help us. So I select the leaf number 1. I choose AI standard surface shader, and I will choose this triple S shader with scale of 0.1 and take some green color there. Okay, I'll just name this as leaf shader 1, and I select the next one and assign AI standard surface shader, leaf shader 2. So the same thing, I need to remove the base, and I forgot to put the specular value to 0.5 and roughness to 0.5. Okay, that looks pretty convincing again. It's because I just got that mix of different hues of the green or saturation and little bit variations are given between that three shaders. Fair enough. I select the tiles here and here as well. I select and assign AI standard surface shader. I'll just name this as roof tiles. And I'll just open the UV texture editor first and then see how the UVs are. Then I just apply layout for all of them so that it will be just scattered around the 01 area. And they're not very neat, but again I just want them to be procedurally achieved. So I'll just go to the color and then choose 2D texture, fractal, and I get that nice randomization here. And then I go to the color, FX, in color remap I choose this and I take a color which is sort of dark and another color which is the same way here too. I'll assign existing roof tiles shader. So in this we want the specularity to 0.2 and roughness to 0.4. So let's see what it will end up. Here. Okay. There is a plane in the model by which we are getting that white shade. Consider if that was a real building, we might have wood there. So what we do is we put a wooden shader there for the roof and we'll try to keep it low. I don't want it to stand out strongly. So it's been some time. So I'll just go to shading, choose bounding box and save the file. So I select these two things and then apply AI standard surface shader. And then I don't use any specularity there. And in the bump section, I'll use a 3D texture because I didn't do any UVs there. So I'll use a 3D texture and preferably volume noise there. Okay. So I put the bump depth to 0.05 and that should give me that basic roughness of the wall. That looks cool. And I select the placement of that and scale this texture to 0.5, little bit smaller. I'm just seeing if any certain roughness comes in there. Okay, and how that looks like in the render, because what we see in the viewport and what we see in the render are not same precisely. Okay. So I select this and name this as wall shader. So I just choose the 3D texture and solid fractal. Again, this 3D texture, because I don't have the UVs. I just got that nice organic variation in the walls, but again, I just don't want that muddy color. Maybe we can take that color directly without doing much of change, but uh, the diffuse amount, if I just choose to 0.8, it will become slightly brighter. So in that case, you can go to the color remap. And I'm just taking a slightly muddy color and keeping it low. So there's a lot of wooden objects here. So I'll just apply wood shader for everything which is on wooden, and I want to put it in one shader. Wood. I'll choose a volume noise. Yeah. And to get that texture of wood, I'll just scale. um, I'll put the scale X to 0.5 and Z to 0.5, but Y I'll put it to 5. So I get that nice stretched streak um, sort of placement. But this doesn't work for the furniture which are horizontal. So I need to separate that. First we'll design the shader. So I'll put this to 15 and this to 0.2 and 0.2. I have that nice fine lines on the furniture. It looks okay for the long posts, but it doesn't look for the other furniture on the down. So I'll just choose the effects section and then insert. I'll stop the render, take that dry color and the shader does not shine, so I'll make the specular weight to 0. It looks blending with the background, but as I said, I'll make a copy of this shader and then apply for the other wood which is like going this way. So I'll just choose. I'll open the hyper shade and then click this button to bring that shader down here. Then I select this wood shader 02 and then go to edit and then apply duplicate shading network. So this will create wood shader 03 and I need to assign this 03 for these objects here. Okay, assign existing wood shader 03 and then this 03 has got the volume nice and its placement node I selected. So this direction should be 15, 15, 0.2. So that will get, this part will get vertical lines, right? This part will get the horizontal lines, which should be part of the flow. So I'm not using the wood shader as such, but trying to get something like that. This looks like a cane basket. I will assign a very similar texture. Okay, so firstly I use AI standard surface shader and remove the specularity, cane shader. So here I'll be using the 3D texture solid fractal. So that will have the texture. So I'll choose the placement 0.2, 0.2, 0.2. 3D textures doesn't really need UVs. Make sure that that object doesn't move. You need to remember that. They are very far from camera, so I'm not much going for the details of the work. Okay, so I just choose the shader and I choose AI standard surface shader and then put it a metal shader. So I've got the cane. Okay, for the cane shader, I need to select the reflections. Okay, I already made it 0. Now for the door, it looks too stretched. So I select the wood shader number 2 and I go here and then placement. I'll put it to 8 and this one to 0.5. So I just want it to be a little bit calm down in the stretch. I select these two glasses and assign glass shader. And for the glass shader, I will choose the color black, or you can put the diffuse weight to 0. Roughness 0.1, it is okay. But in transmission, we make it transparent. We can make more edge, dirt and all that stuff, but again, I'm not going in too much into detail. We can use ambient occlusions and all that and make things more complex. For this, it is the bone. So I assign surface shader, bone shader. So I'll put the roughness to 0.35 and in again, I don't want a very clear color there. I'm using recycling different shaders here. For this one, I'll be using AI standard surface shader. Lastly, we have some stone here. So I'll use AI standard surface shader. Rock shader. And in the displacement, I'll be using a texture, and then select that geometry, and in Arnold I'll be using the subdivision catalog, and minus 0.1, 0.2, I'll remove the specularity, and then in color we'll take a 3D texture. I'll break the connection, take a noise, and then use color remap. Which should be very low in terms of shading. And lastly, I'll choose the fog here in the environment. So go to the atmosphere, create AI fog. So I just changed the ground normal to white, and height I'll put it to 1 or maybe 2, and then choose the color from background. So it is rendering. So this is what we have ended up in this. So it's a quick tour of what we have done so far. Thank you.